A Gathering of Gargoyles by Meredith and Pierce. Chapter 14, Mage. By the time Solstar had climbed a third of its way toward zenith, Ariel knew she had crossed into terrain. The rocks had grown cream-colored, no longer gray. Here and there, slides had scarred the brittle surface of the steeps. The road led very nearly north. She met no one, avoided towns. Below her in the valleys where the denser air gathered, leaf fir and hardy finger grass clustered. Higher up, white star blaze and brittle scrub. She walked with her hood raised against the sun, went quickly and steadily, took little rest. She found herself growing very hungry and weary. She felt chilled from having walked the last hour in the shadow of a steep. Halting where the road curved around a boulder, she sat down in the sunlight. Two of her gargoyles lay panting in the boulder's shade. The third browsed along the road's edge ahead. Ariel felt ravenous. And she had no food, she realized, searching her pack. She must have finished off what little she had brought out of Purrs the last time she camped. She eyed the last two apricocks a moment, fingered them, but no. She put them up again and turned to gaze up the barren road ahead, wondering what root or seed she might gather there. Again, as she had on the beach in Burn, she found herself longing for Talb, the Darrow, and his little velvet bag of delicacies. Ariel started from her thoughts. A figure rounded the bend ahead. The mooncalf shied, but the traveler brushed by without seeming to see it. The figure was swathed in a long dark robe, a deep hood hiding the face from view. Sleeves covered even the fingertips. The hem of the garment dragged on the ground. The traveler was very short, Ariel realized as it neared, stood little more than half her height. It nearly wandered off the cliff's edge before riding its course. The fair girl sat staring. The gargoyles beside her had begun to growl. The figure tripped on the hem of its robe, sprawling flat in the middle of the road. After a moment, it picked itself up and progressed diagonally across the path. It came up against the hillside, presently halting with a muffled curse. "A plague upon this garment! I vow let the witch take it, I hate it so. Oof!" It collided with the hillside across from her again. Ariel's mouth had fallen open. "You!" she said, getting to her feet. "What are you about? Throw back your hood, or you will come to harm." The figure started violently and whirled, feeling the air with its sleeve-hidden hands. "What's that? Who's there?" came a voice much smothered in cloth. Grayling had begun to gibber, and Catwing to yowl. "I warn you," the figure cried. "I am a wizard, and you had best be one yourself if you mean to harm me." Ariel took the grayling by the scruff of the neck and shook it to be still. Catwing slunk around behind her. "I am no wizard," she answered, "and I mean you no harm. I only meant you will harm yourself if you do not watch your way. I am Ariel." "Ariel?" the figure exclaimed, struggling with its hood. "Did you say Ariel? I cannot hear properly in this sack." "Where's a shadow?" Its arms groped for a moment until they touched the boulder's shade. The figure ducked into the shadow of the rock and threw back its hood. Ariel gave a little cry, for she recognized the wizened face, the stone-gray eyes, and long twisting beard. The Darrow stood blinking. "Talb!" she cried. "Little Mage of Downending!" The Darrow cast about him. "Ariel," he said. "Where are you, child?" "Here," said Ariel, directly before him now. The little mage frowned, peered straight through her, then away. He caught sight of the gargoyles suddenly. Grayling yipped and Catwing snarled. The mooncalf on the slope above sent a shower of tiny stones raining down. "Stop that!" the little mage exclaimed. "Cease, you monstrosities! Ariel, come out and call off your beasts! Where are you? This is a fine greeting!" Ariel stilled the gargoyles with a word. "I am right here," she answered, kneeling before the little man. "Can you not see me?" She put back her hood to be able to see him better. The Darrow's eyes found her suddenly at last. He stared a moment, then began to laugh. "Of course I can see you, daughter. Now, wherever did you get a day cloak? I could well have used one these last day months in place of this wretched garb." He gestured to his own ill-fitting garment, then fingered the material of her cloak. "It is a simple traveler's cloak," she told him, puzzled. "I got it in Burn 4 day months past." "What is so remarkable in it?" "Do you mean," exclaimed the Darrow, "you have traveled all the way from Burn in a day cloak and did not know it?" Ariel gazed at her robes, feeling the material now herself. It seemed, as it had always seemed to her, very soft, pale without, darker within. My people make such cloaks, the little man said. We cannot bear the light of Solstar, for the ancients made us to dwell underground. We may travel by night, of course, without any difficulty, but when we must go overland by day, we must wear a day cloak. That, or swaddle ourselves completely in other stuff. But how is my cloak different from yours? Asked Ariel. The little mage took off his own dusty overcloak, careful to stand still completely in the boulder's shadow. He wore underneath the garment she remembered, a loose gray robe with many folds. Hand me your cloak, he said. Ariel did so. The Duro shook it out. The fibre is such, and the weave is such, an ancient art, and one I regret I never learned, as to make the wearer unseen by day, for it is invisible to the light of Solstar. Unseen? Said Ariel, and began to laugh. I never vanished. Not from your own sight, the little man replied. Those who wear day cloaks can always see themselves. He put the day cloak on. And I can see you now, Ariel said. Naturally, the mage replied. My hood is down, but lift it. He did so. Nothing happened. Ariel saw him still, as plain in the shadow of the rock, and stepped from the shade. He stepped into the light of Solstar, and vanished. Ariel started. The gargoyles whined. She heard the Duros chuckle, and a scuffling as if someone walking. Little puffs of dust rose from the road. She saw footprints there, but no shadow, no form. The little mage reappeared, stepping back into the boulder's shade. Of course I don't dare put back the hood in sunlight, he said. I'd be visible then, as were you, but being a Duro, I'd turn to stone. But Ariel was hardly listening now. The hood, she murmured. It only works by sunlight, you say? That is why Aaron said I appeared out of the air, she cried. Why she and Rushka looked suddenly so frightened when I left them. Why Nat jumped so when she first saw me. The goat boy called me a sorceress. She turned back to the Duro, lost for words. It fits you, she found herself saying in a moment, for the garment did, fitting his much shorter, stockier frame exactly as it had fit her tall, slender one. The Duro nodded. It is a virtue of day cloaks, always to be exactly the proper size. Ariel said, Is that why I have had no shadow? Even by night, by lamplight, I have no shadow. But gazing down at her feet, she saw with a rush of relief she was casting a shade again, for she was not wearing the day cloak now. The Duro nodded again. Who wears a day cloak has no shadow by any light. He sat down, leaning against the rock. Have you been wearing it hood up by daylight, daughter? And when Ariel nodded again, the little man laughed. Then no wonder the White Witch has not managed to find you yet. Ariel looked at him. Oh, yes, she has been hunting you and me these many day months. Prince Iralath, too, I suppose, though he is safe in Esternice. The mention of her husband's name brought a painful sensation to Ariel's breast. She turned, that the little mage might not see her face. What do you know of the White Witch's hunting? She asked him softly. The other shifted where he sat, stretching as one very weary of travel. He began rummaging through the pockets of his robe. Ariel remembered suddenly how ravenous she was. I meant to tell you, daughter, he answered then, but I am hungry. Let us eat first. So they ate. The Duro produced tiny melons the size of fists, plump, rosy appleberries, yellow rum root wrapped in husks, shelled havernuts, and great white mushrooms, of which he was so fond, along with a sprig of withered, aromatic leaves. Ariel gathered sticks, and the little mage conjured fire. The melons they roasted until they split, crackling and fizzing over the low, licking flames. The rum roots they baked, basting them with the juice of appleberries. And the mushrooms they ate between handfuls of havernuts. Then, to Ariel's surprise, the Duro drew from his robe a tiny kettle, which he filled with water from a flask, then steeped the leaves to a dark green tea which smelled of ginger and tasted of lime. They sipped it from the halves of the split melon rinds. He told her of all that had befallen him since they had parted a half-year ago in Averick. How he had journeyed to the witch's palace of cold white stone, pretending to be some servant of her son, so that Ariel and her prince might have time to weave their sail of dark angel's feathers and escape to Isterness. He told Ariel of the witch's scream when she had learned at last that Irelath was lost to her, how he himself had fled then, avoiding her hunters ever since. At last his tale was done. They could eat no more. The little man eyed Ariel a moment, sipping his tea. "Were you very happy in Easterness?" Ariel sighed. "Was it so... Oh, were you very unhappy in Easterness?" Ariel sighed. "Was it so obvious?" "Irelath loathes the sight of me," she said. "Does he?" the little mage asked gently. "The only loathing I saw in him was self-loathing when last we parted." Ariel hugged Grayling, shivering slightly. She did not want to think of Irelath. "Maidens came to me," she said, "that had been the vampire's brides in Avaric. They told me the second part of Ravenna's rhyme." She looked at the Darrow then. "That is why I came away." The mage's brows went up. "Did they?" he murmured. "Recite it for me." Ariel said, "But first there must assemble those the Ikari would claim. A bride in the temple must enter the flame. Steeds found for the second-born beyond the dust-deep sea. And new arrows reckoned, a wand given wings, so that when a princess royal shall have tasted of the tree, then far from Esterness's city these things, a gathering of gargoyles, a feasting on the stone, the witch of Westerness's hag overthrown." The little man nodded. "You have learned it perfectly," he said. "I could not have taught you better myself." Ariel laughed, resting her head against Grayling. "The part of the steeds," she said, "is all I understand. Do you understand it?" But the Darrow shook his head. "I hardly understood the first part, daughter." Ariel looked off. Would she never find the answer? Was there no one who might help her but the Sibyl in Orm? Her blood chilled. She shivered. She was so weary of journeying, and the task hardly even begun. "I am going to Orm," she told him, "to ask the Sibyl what it means." "I will go with you," the little mage replied, and Ariel felt her heart lift just a bit. She smiled her gratitude at him. The Darrow said, "But tell me, what has befallen to bring you this far?" Ariel spoke then of crossing the Sea of Dust, the Keeper of the Light, and the City of Thieves. She told him of blighted Zambal, of Aaron and Roshka, of the suzerain in Purs, and the caves of the underdwellers there. So saying, she showed him the little pick she had found. The Darrow ran his fingers over it, testing the heft. It fit his smaller hand. "A miner's pick, or a smith's hammer," he murmured. "I cannot tell." He put it away in the day-cloak's pocket. "But it is strange, in all my journeying since Avaric, I have seen no other of my kind. Their halls stand empty, long unused, and the only answer I have gotten from those overlanders who even remember us is, the underfolk have gone away." He gazed off, fingering his long grey beard. "It is strange, very strange, and it troubles me." Lastly, Ariel spoke of the light-bearers, and the blazing torch, and of the dark angel that had gazed into her eyes and screamed and fled. "Why was that?" she asked him. She shook her head. "I do not understand." "Do you not?" the mage replied. "You are a slayer of dark angels, child. You have stolen the witch's last son away and restored him to mortality. You wear his hallowed heart within your breast. Do you think a seraph cannot see that when he looks into your eyes?" The Darrow shook his head. "The Lorelei has been a fool to try to frighten you with dark angels, and she has called them all home to her now. As I crossed the Elver, I saw the dark angel of that land flying northeast toward Pendar, joined by the Icarus of Terrain, 2 blots of darkness against the stars. I wondered at it. But if she has called those two together to her, then she has called them all home. But if she has called those two together to her, then she has called them all home, be sure. She is still hunting us, but I do not believe she will use dark angels against you again." And we'll pause there.